Previously on Higurashi When They Cry Console Arcs.
どうしてこの要請を断ってくださらなかったんですか？あなたなら、私を推薦組に選んでくださったあなたなら、広報室からの打診があっても断れたはずじゃないですか。なのになんで
Yamoki kept silent, and then changed his expression in response to Tomei's fierce question. No matter how frustrated she was with him, she still had to ask.
あなたは去年、警備局の公安課長の椅子を蹴って、この書き打ちに来られたと聞きました。そして、10年以上も経って、父が最後にメモに書き残したこの地に来たということは、何かを掴んだ。そう私は考えていました。
巴くん。
だから、私をこの書き打ちに呼んでくれたこと、嬉しかった。きっとあなたが、父の残した謎を解き明かすチャンスをくれたんだって。まどかのこと、推薦組のことは引っかかっていたけど、それよりもこの機会を作ってくれたことは本気で感謝していました。なのに、なんで私をこの書き打ちから遠ざけようとするんです？一体私は何のためにここに来たんですか？
There was a still huge cloud of darkness around the case Tomei's father was investigating. Enough so that Yamoki still hesitated to tell her the full truth. In other words, the folks at the public security were laying bait in the water Tomei was swimming in, hoping to get rid of her? A horrible thought came to mind. What if the people at public security wanted to set up a workplace accident? In other words, they wanted to somehow cause harm to Tomei. You mean like what we already saw with Monika's car in the last episode? What if she was attacked? Or even killed? Was that what they were hoping for? If they took advantage of the opportunity gleaned from an accident like that, they'd have a good reason for intervening. Yamoki simply couldn't afford to overlook the possibility. Members of the security police couldn't even reveal their mission details to their colleagues. It was their duty to do inhumane things in the interest of national security.
あのお嬢ちゃんは一度現場から遠ざけておいた方がいいな。下手をすれば消されるぞ。あの子たちの幸せをお前は未来の墓前に誓ったんだろう。
なあ、ユウスケ。俺はお前の仇を討てそうにない。だったらせめてあの子だけでもと思うのは間違っているか？
Yamoki sighed alone, while gazing at the birds through the blinds. He too felt the same as her. He hated being a powerless individual facing down a massive organization. No, he may have felt it even more strongly than she did.
贖罪とか懺悔とか、そんなものはもういらない。何もかも打ち明けて、話して、ぶつけ合って、それでも、レイナが私の友達でいてくれるかを、私はあの子に尋ねたい。そして私も、今度こそ本当の意味で、あの子の友達になれるかを確かめたい。だって、私は今でも、レイナのことが大好きだから。レイナのせいで悲しいことも味わったけど、彼女との楽しい思い出も、間違いなくたくさんあるんです。その思いを、私はあの子に伝えたい。そして、あの子が表に出せなかった悩みや苦しみを受け止めてあげたい。あの子が昔、私にそうしてくれたように。会った時、あの子は笑ってくれるかな？話す時の癖は、まだ残っているかな？いろんな不安だらけだけど、でも、それと同じくらい、期待もあります。だから、私は信じて、レイナと会ってきます。そして、刑事さんにいい報告ができるよ。結果は後日、お電話にてご報告します。もし、お忙しくてまた連絡が行き違うようでしたら、自宅の電話番号を書いておきましたので、 お手すきの時にでもお電話をいただけましたら、とても嬉しいです。それではまた。今度お会いできた時には、園芸部で一番綺麗なお花を持っていきますので、楽しみにしていてください。尾崎渚。
今までびくともしなかった大きな歯車の向きが逆へと変わって動き出す。そしてその動きは一見僕たちの邪魔をするもの。でもその歯車一つの動きで奇跡は必然となり、運命のサイコロは僕たちの手へと移る。その歯車があなたです。かけらに残ったままどうしても外せなかったよどみを取り除き、あなた自身はそのよどみと共に離れてゆくけれど、その結晶をより堅固なものへと変える存在なのです。
Is this dream? Am I witnessing some ridiculous dream?
見ない友へ、過去に苦しみそれでも前に進もうとあがき続ける強い意志の人よ。僕たちにはあなたが必要。いえ、リカにはあなたが必要なんです。
待ってよ。リカって誰？それにそもそもあなたは一体何者？
僕はお社様。あなたの大切な人たちを傷つけ命を奪ったとあなたが誤解して憎み続ける上々の存在。
The blood suddenly ran to Tomei's head, and she reflexively tried to stand up. But she lacked strength in her legs, so she fell in place. Still, even though she turned to the girl with rage in her eyes, the girl responded with a timid smile devoid of fear.
憎いですか？悔しいですか？そう。あなたのその黒い感情が僕たちには不可欠なもの。毒を持って毒を制すの例え通り、強固な黒い意志にくさびを打ち込めるのは黒い感情でしか成し得ないのです。待っています。このひなみ沢で。
Fight hate with hate. It wasn't as simple as standing up and fighting with revenge in your heart. That simply made it a collision between two egos. In other words, it was about approaching your opponent with the same passion, but also with understanding. It is only because you feel your own strong, dark emotions that you're in a position to understand your adversaries. And in doing so, you also know how to calm your opponent. Humans are not wild animals. With few exceptions, they rely on reasoning rather than instinct. So, when a person chooses to attack another, there is a reason that drove them to action. In order to identify that, you must first know the other person and their sense of values. Know thy enemy. Find the source of despair that nobody else could understand, and unravel the dark emotions that drove them to solitude. That's right. Because compassion and animosity are two sides of the same coin. And, as those words repeated in Tomei's head over and over, she realized that the hopeless despondency she had been feeling till last night was no longer there.
なるほどね。そういうことか。それに、そもそも悪が手段を選ばない以上、正義だってそうあるべきですよね。一人の悪役に5人総出でタコ殴りにしても、巨大ロボットで踏みつけたとしても、正義である限りは卑怯なんて考えてはいけないんです。だって、正義は必ず勝たなきゃいけないんですから。
お姉ちゃん。
未来さん。
Maka and Fujita could only stare on, looking overwhelmed as Tomei so proudly declared that. But Yamoki wasn't like that. Her answer was so earnest that it was comical, and he couldn't bear the absurdity of how exasperatingly resolute she was. Hey, Yusuke! This incredibly bold willingness to take action, to never give in. Your daughter's exactly like you, from head to toe.
そんなわけですから、しばらくまたお世話になります。どうかお手柔らかに。
ああ、好きにやりたまえ。
Very well. Let's see this girl's future all the way through to the end. Yamoki said that to himself, and washed her back as she turned and stepped out of the room. That's right. Everything starts now. I won't let it end. Not a chance. No matter how cunning or even supernatural my foe may be, I'll bring this chain of tragedies to a close. And for that reason, I'll use everything at my disposal to keep on fighting.
それから今回はマスコミ関係者向けの報道取材対応を警察庁広報室に担当していただきます。南井係長、どうぞ。
At Section Chief Dojima's urging, Tomei stood up and took a bow. She could see Monica standing near the opposite wall, offering an encouraging smile.
広報室特務係長の南井です。報道取材対応を担当いたします。よろしくお願いします。
I won't give up. Ever. I'll make that miracle a reality. I'll carve a path to destiny. With my own two hands.
すべては己が手のひらの上で踊る戯れか。ま、それもいいでしょう。どちらが菩薩で孫悟空なのか。あと
And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of the Higurashi Console Arcs. So, in the last episode, I ended up rather suddenly finishing Tokihogushi in its entirety. So suddenly, in fact, that I still have a slight hint of anticlimax still left on my tongue from how everything ended. And it's probably going to be a few days yet before the taste finally goes away completely. So my hope is that whatever Tokihogushi was originally trying to set up here, we'll actually get a proper climax to it in one of the later console arcs. But I guess that's just one of those things we'll have to wait and see. But I'm pretty sure it probably will. So I just gotta suffer through the feeling of anticlimax until we eventually get to that point, whenever that point may be. So, let's take a look at our list. So, next on our list is Connecting Fragments. And then after that, we will have 3 different Miyotsukushi routes. Miyotsukushi Omote, Miyotsukushi Ura, and Miyotsukushi PS2. So before I actually get started with Connecting Fragments here, one of my viewers has informed me that in regards to the Miyotsukushi routes, Omote and Ura were actually originally meant to be one single route, but for some reason, for the DS port of Higurashi, they split the route into 2, Omote and Ura respectively. And how you're actually supposed to experience this Miyotsukushi is by playing Omote up to a certain point, day 10 in that story, and then once you get to that point, you stop. Then you switch over and go through the entirety of Ura, and then once you do that, go back to Omote and then finish that one to completion too. As for Miyosakushi PS2, I mean, going by the name, I'm going to assume it's just basically a different version of the similar story arc that the other Miyosakushis is probably setting up here, but it's exclusive to the PlayStation 2 version of Higurashi that came out way back in the day, hence the name PS2. Well, PS2 being in the name. Well, there's also the fact here that we seem to have that Rika over here seems to have been given a bit of a dye job with her hair, which is interesting to say the least. I'm kind of wondering what that's all about, but I'm sure we'll get. But yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that eventually. I know we will. Eventually. So. We have 4 arcs left to cover, and then I will have to finally get around to actually updating this my damn copy of the Higurashi Console Arcs, and then seeing what new content has been added to the most recent version of the mod. Because last I checked, I think there has been at least 2 additional arcs that have been added on here that I don't actually have on my particular copy. So, the amount of arcs that we probably have left to sit through is actually probably closer to 6 or 7, give or take. But like with figuring out the differences between Miyosakushi PS2 and the other ones, and I'm sure we'll figure out how much more we'll actually have to go through when we get to it. Now, got all that out of the way, let's get started. Connecting Fragments. These are the additional fragments added in the console version of Chapter 8, Matsuribayashi. They should be read after completing Somotsushi, Kagabushi, and Tokyogushi. These fragments explore the additional characters introduced in the console arcs. Ah, I see now. So we're going to figure out what Tomoe's big role within the big game of Fate that we're playing in right now is going. What exactly the nature of said role is going to be in this arc, right? We're going to see what Hanyu was alluding to. Welcome to the world of the final chapters of Higurashi When They Cry, Matsuribayashi, and Miyosakushi. In this world, you'll be able to recreate the story from Hanyu's point of view. Your objective is to create the June 1983 ideal to you. You will need to collect many different fragments to make that possible. However, Takano's conviction is very strong. To overturn it, you'll need a lot of effort and a lot of fragments. I'll warn you right now, it'll be a slow and painful process. Hanyu went through it for over 100 years, and she even had to stop and give in to fate. Defeating Takano's conviction will not be easy. The trial in this world will put you through as much pain as Hanyu had to endure. You may surrender, just like Hanyu did, after being emotionally worn down by the constant repetition of the worlds, woven by countless fragments. When you feel like surrendering, you can end this game at any time. But if you do, the worlds revolving around your friends' fate will be limited to Onikakushi through Minagorushi. By forgetting about this world and erasing the story from your memory, you will finally accept death. Just like Rika did. Your ideal June 1983 can be created by putting together 99 fragments that are scattered all over this world. 99, holy shit. To connect these fragments together, you will need the right ones. There are 99 of them, which may be dizzying. However, this world isn't that merciless. To ease your pain, there will be a little help for you. When you choose the wrong pieces, your only ally here will give you a sign that it's not yet time to put those fragments together. As long as the sign remains, you won't be able to connect them. You might as well go look for different ones. After you put other fragments together, you might be able to connect the ones you couldn't put together earlier. When that happens, she'll let you know. Let's put those fragments together. Then you'll be able to join the other ones too. There are also some fragments that can offer you advice. They'll be revealed by the fragment words you've gained from the worlds thus far, or from completely different worlds. Yes, the most familiar words you've encountered while playing Higurashi When They Cry may open the way. Trying out various things is one way. And then, when the huge mass of all 99 fragments are linked together, you'll arrive at the fragment of Matsuribayashi or Miyatsukushi. The ideal June of 1983 will be born there. So Miyatsukushi is definitely meant to be an alternate ending to Chapter 8 then? That's when the long-awaited Matsuribayashi or Miyatsukushi will finally begin. Before you peek each fragment, why don't you line up all 99 of them first? Most of them require other fragments, so there are only a few you can actually look at. Let's try to find those first. This will be an extremely long and difficult trial. Let me tell you again, Hanyu challenged this for over 100 years and gave up on it. If you believe in miracles in the same way your friends do, even if you don't live in the world where they live, if you believe in them. Now, let the connecting fragments begin here. Here we gather the scattered fragments of destiny. It's a very important journey of patience that demonstrates the power of your strong will. In this world, you'll be tested to see if you believe in the world that Rika and the others believed in. A miracle only happens when everyone combines their strength. The June 1983 created by Takano is nearly indomitable. She's gathered many people whose powers are beyond the average person to her side, her backers being at the center of national authority. Even if 100 dice all rolled ones, there wouldn't even be a chance to defeat her. In other words, a miracle is the only way forward. A miracle happens only when everyone combines their strength. And you are one of them. Also, additional worlds have been prepared for those who finished reading these stories. One is Psycho-Roshi. This is a world that Rika never wanted to see. But in order to prove her true nature and her growth, this world must never be avoided. And the other is Kotohubushi. This is a world from the past that Hanyu herself has sealed from her own memory. In the era when Hinamizawa was known as Onikafuchi. Oh, a prequel? If you wish to know how she came to be known as Orishiro-sama, you can catch a glimpse of that there. However, her own memory has gotten faulty after so many years of wandering, so not everything seen there may be accurate. Oh, unreliable narrator stuff, huh? I'll keep that in mind. Thus, I hope you enjoy this world as it is. Are you ready? Ready as I'll ever be to connect 99 freaking fragments. I'm more than ready. Well, I'm glad you are. The key to a long journey is not to pressure yourself too hard. Well, let's take it at a light pace. I'll watch from my usual place. Shall we begin? We have all the time in this world. Let's meet again after you manage to bring peace to the entire world. Okay. Here we go. Oh, at least we can save. Okay. I guess this is it. This is definitely not like the other connecting fragments from Chapter 8 that I remember seeing. Not at all. View all tips. Looks like it's the same one here. Guess it doesn't matter. What's that one arc's name that they said that Rika does, that shows the world that Rika doesn't want to see, that's instrumental in her growth? I think that would be as good a place to start as any. Guess it's not here. Let's just start here at the victory celebration.
何がそんなに愉快なんだろう。
Musing about what? An old relative of mine asked me to serve for a banquet, and I didn't understand the meaning behind his extreme joy. No, it's not that I didn't understand. It's that I couldn't comprehend it.
ひなみ沢ダム建設阻止成功万歳鬼ヶ淵死守同盟万歳
Oh, this was after the whole project fell apart, huh? The villagers were raising 3 cheers with their faces bright red from drinking, enjoying the food and making a lot of noise. Every last one of them was patting one another on the shoulder, shaking hands, and letting out roaring laughter regardless of who they were interacting with. It was already late in the night, but the mood was hardly calming down. In fact, it was getting hotter.
ざまあ見ろ役人どもわしらひなみ沢全員の結束の力思い知ったかそうじゃそうじゃ正義はわしらにありあんな私利私欲のお役人どもにわしらの生活の基盤を破壊されてたまるかい
I second that notion.
わしらの正義そしてお社様に乾杯じゃ乾杯
The old people raised another toast for who knows how many times today, and shouted while holding up their beer glasses. The laughter was getting louder and louder, and my ears were painfully ringing. The smell of food and alcohol in the room was completely overbearing, and I was starting to feel a little sick, so I stepped out into the hallway. Finally managing to escape that suffocating atmosphere, I took a great big breath. The Hinamizawa region was no longer going to be submerged by the dam. The old folks certainly did not have reason to celebrate, since they prevented the loss of their hometown. But is everyone in the village actually happy about this outcome? That question came to mind after listening to my parents.
ひなみ沢から立ち退く家には結構な保証金が国からあてがわれるそうよ。それこそちょっとした都市部でも一戸建ての家が持てるくらいの。はあ、そうと分かっていたら住民票をひなみ沢に残しておいたのにね。
おい、よさないか。
お母さんが聞いたらきっと怒るぞ。うちは仮にも君吉家の一員じゃないか。
構わないわよ。そもそもうちは御三家の一つといっても分家の一つなんだから。別にありがたい恩恵もないし、私にとっては不便な田舎でしかなかったわ。
That was the reason she went to a boarding school in the city for high school. She found a college and a job in that same town. Now here she used that part-time job as an excuse not to go home over the summer. That's why, even now, she didn't get along well with Grandma. She didn't participate at all in the dam war, because she didn't want to be seen with Grandma, who was obsessed with Hinamizawa. Mom never felt tied down to Hinamizawa in the first place. She hated the countryside. She and I definitely couldn't get along then. Information was scarce, and entertainment options were limited. Travel was inconvenient, and the climate was hot. Mom can be loud and annoying sometimes, that she can, but I understand how she must have felt. Because I wasn't all that fond of Hinamizawa either. And tonight in particular, my thoughts were leaning closer to hate.
人が死んでるのに、なんでこの人たちはこんなに笑えるんだろう。
It happened just last month. The on-site director at the dam construction site was slaughtered by his laborers, and his body was found dismembered. One of the culprits still hadn't been found, and there were rumors that they hid in Okinomiya. Thanks to that, my school required everyone to travel in groups when coming and going from school. But discussions about Hinamizawa Dam Project are now being re-reviewed, and the word of that seems to have reached the town council. That's why the villagers have been saying the curse of Orishiro-sama killed the on-site director, and the government froze the dam construction plan out of fear.
でも、どうしてそこまで喜べるのかな。自分たちさえ良ければ、誰かは不幸になってもいいの。
Depends on the person. There can be some really awful people in this world who will more than likely have brought a shit ton of harm to other people who didn't deserve misfortune. So it's kind of like watching karma in action when it decides to finally pay a visit to people who have brought heaps of misfortune onto others. A sort of what goes around comes around sort of thing, you know. I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with taking satisfaction in seeing, frankly, a bunch of huge assholes in the world get what's coming to them when karma finally decides to come knocking. Karma, after all, karma's only a bitch if you yourself are one. At least that's how I see it. Not the most forgiving outlook on life, I know. It definitely isn't. But again, it's just how I see it. The one time I saw the on-site director on the road, he certainly did have a gruff appearance, and I was scared at first. But when he asked me for directions and I told him the way, he said, "Thanks, miss," and bought me a can of juice. I used to live in Hinamizawa for a few years, and everyone always thought me a gloomy girl, so the villagers were always somewhat aloof of me. So, having someone treat me kindly for the first time in so long made me really happy.
人は見かけによらないな。この人もきっと本当はいい人なんだ。
That's why I hated when the people somewhat close to me, like Mion-chan and the others, talked bad about him. So, I wasn't interested in participating in the protest demonstrations with my relatives and the villagers. even though people criticized us behind our backs for that due to our ties to the three families. I pretended not to hear it. But that man died just last month. He was killed. He'd never speak again. He'd never meet me on the roadside and buy me juice again. Thinking about that, my chest tightened in grief. And yet, despite that, these people were. It wasn't just the harshness making me uncomfortable. Uryu-san and Uncle Kimiyoshi seems truly happy to say serves them right. But the people around them were just pretending to be happy. As evidence of that, whenever one of them stepped out of the ring of cheers to grab a drink of their own, they'd sigh with a slightly tired look on their face. They're not actually happy. They're just doing it so they don't feel left out. Defying the will of the village would make them just like the director who was killed. That's it. They're just making excuses to be accepted by the other villagers.
バカみたい。
Really, everyone doesn't believe in the curse at all. What they actually fear is going against the will of the village, being labeled an enemy of Hinamizawa. Enough so that they'd show barbaric faces to the people they hate, and wish that a curse would kill them. And the on-site director was the only one who received the curse this time. And if that's the case, then the next one the curse is likely to befall is the Hojo family, who organized the pro-dam movement. Or maybe someone who defended them. Or even someone who didn't come out strongly enough saying that they were an enemy. I've heard the villagers spreading rumors like that when I was out helping with farming work. And every time, it's not Orishiro-sama they're afraid of. It's the leaders of the three families.
みんな、嘘つきだ。
They speak vehemently about companionship and pride in their hometown. But the root of it all that is fear. Can such an outrageously shameful solidarity really be legitimate? Is that somebody to take pride in? My head ached. My heartbeat was getting intense, and cold sweat began flowing down my cheeks. I clung to my chest and thought about trying to go home for the day, so I decided to go looking for Uncle Kimiyoshi. I'm not seeing anything that looks new or modified in any way, so I guess it doesn't actually matter what order I do all this stuff in. Well, if that's the case, then that certainly makes my job a lot easier. Kawaru Yamoki.
まさかここまでやってくれるとはな。
What did they do this time? Did they eat all the mac and cheese without notifying you or giving you a share? I gulped down some warm alcohol and let out a long sigh while shaking my stomach to release the tension. Does that actually release tension? Never thought of trying that before. Delicious liquor and delicious hors d'oeuvres. No idea if I said that right, but it's clearly French, so chances are probably not. I suck at pronouncing French. My tongue had grown accustomed to the cheap sake and stew served at bars, so this was clearly beyond my means. Even when I received the invitation, I never dreamed that the Metropolitan Police Department would show such generous hospitality. And I felt a twinge of regret for showing up empty-handed.
せめてミナイさんがいてくれたら気が楽だったんだが。
How's Minai doing today, I wonder? Still lamenting over the future that she's gonna have with her future brother-in-law, so to speak. After meeting Deputy Inspector Minai at a networking meeting in Tokyo a few years back, we'd become friends and would go out drinking together anytime I came to Tokyo. He was originally supposed to be here acting as an intermediary for Commissioner Yamaoki, but unfortunately something urgent came up that demanded his attention, so he wouldn't be coming.
おいさん、まあそう固くならずに。ミナイ君からも酒にはお強いと伺っております。そうそう、どうぞご遠慮なくやってください。
And you, Yamaoki, are quite the flyer. Or at least you would have been if I was actually given the opportunity to show the whole world how good a flyer you are by launching you out your office window. Yeah, I still haven't gone over your act of betrayal against me in the last arc, and I'm never going to forgive you for it. Not until you get on your knees and beg for your life.
いやー、お恥ずかしい。こういう畳敷きの広い場所で飲むのは温泉地に慰安旅行に行った時ぐらいのものでして、私は田舎での小心者ですから妙に身構えてしまうんですよ。
そんなご謙遜を。とりあえずこんなじじいの尺で大変恐縮ですが、もう一つどうぞ。
Pour another on your head.
ああ、これはすみません。おっとっとっと。いい匂いだな。いい日本酒ってのは香りだけで酔わせてくれますね。
Probably be wise for me to never work in a bar then. The commissioner poured some warm alcohol into my cup as I said that, and I took a drink. Even after tasting it again, I can confidently say this is really good alcohol. It would be wonderful if a beautiful young lady was the one pouring it for me. But enjoying a drink recommended by a superior is nice too, I guess. Thinking that, and not wanting to be rude to Yamaoki-san, I decided to believe that and smiled at him.
いやー、それにしても山沖さんにはほとほと頭が下がりますね。わざわざ私なんかのためにこんな素敵な席を設けてくださったんですから、本当にありがたい限りですよ。
何をおっしゃいます。大石さんには今回の白樺山荘の籠城事件で大変お世話になりました。地元警察と我ら警視庁との連携がつつがなく行えたのもひとえにあなたのご協力があってのことと祐介、いやうちの南井からお聞きしております。彼の分までお礼を言わせてください。
いやいや、私は別に大したことなんてしていませんよ。ちょいと脇腹をつついて冷やかしてやっただけです。偉そうに見せようとふんぞり返るのも結構ですが、武装した犯人にはそんなハッタリは通じませんよってね。
Compared to MPD investigators and riot police who are used to dealing with violent criminals on a daily basis, the folks at Prefectural Police HQ weren't just lacking in skills and equipment, but courage too. They have no balls. That's okay though. Send me to work over there. I got enough balls on me here to properly equip an entire police force, and then some. It's beyond reckless to expect people like that to brave the danger of going up against hold-up armed criminals using hostages as shields. In fact, I was ready to smack the person responsible upside the head when I heard they hadn't even distributed bulletproof vests to investigators from the get-go. Even so, perhaps fueled largely by a sense of inferiority, rather than bowing down to MPD, the higher-ups stubbornly refused to work together. Thanks to that, their posture for dealing with the criminal group was completely inadequate, and their initial raid was repelled immediately, making the effort completely meaningless and resulting in some serious injuries. And so, the other investigators on scene and I argued with upper management and appealed for them to delegate authority to the riot police. Thanks to that, overall command authority was handed off to the riot police, while we took care of logistical support. And as a result, the third raid on the mountain villa was a success.
大井さんたちが県警の方々を説得してくれなかったら、山荘への突入はさらに遅れていたでしょう。そうなれば、中で囚われていた人質の身はさらに危険なものとなっていたに違いない。実際、身柄を保護した管理人の奥方は衰弱が激しく、精神的なストレスもあって、現在も長期入院を余儀なくされていますからね。
お気の毒な話です。私たちが覚悟をもっと早いところで決めていたらと思うと。
いやいや、あなた方は十分やってくださいました。その方のご主人も無事の救出をとても喜んでくれましたし、犯人の逃亡も阻止できました。それだけでも上々とすべきだと私は思っております。
そう言ってもらえるとこちらも救われます。まあ、うちの県警の連中ときたら自意識過剰っていうか、東京の方々に対して対抗意識を持ってる奴らが多いですからね。こういう時にこそゴチンと言っておかなくては。連中にもいい薬になったと思いますよ。
いえいえ、本来なら我々警視庁も県警の方々の立場を尊重して事を進める予定だったんですがね。あれ以上もたもたしていると人質の安否はおろか犠牲者がさらに増えていたかもしれない。申し訳ないと思いつつも苦渋の選択でした。そのあたりをぜひ皆さんにもご理解いただけましたらありがたいです。
ねえ、分かっていますって。捜査一課長と公安課長にはちゃんと話をつけておきますから。どうぞ休んじてお任せあれなんてね。
As I poured another round to Yamoki in a good mood, I was silently astonished that there were such capable people at public security. The 1st Division Section Chief at Prefectural HQ and the Section Chief of Public Security were actually old mahjong partners of mine. They must have investigated the depths of those connections before asking me to act as the intermediary.
もっともここまでやってもらっちゃ断れませんがね。
If we were following standard protocol, you'd simply have to meet with each section chief directly and offer them your gratitude while clearly explaining the situation. But if they figured someone who had actually endured dangerous crime scenes, especially a local detective like myself, would be a nice touch for getting through to them. That's why, in addition to working hard for gratitude, they were seeking meditation so the people in the field could save face. I couldn't exactly feel bad about them wanting to make me a key player. I was grateful enough for that sentiment alone.
そういえば例の酒いかがでしたか。あの程度で皆さんの労苦の代価とは思っておりませんが、お口に合えばよかったのですが。
とんでもない、十分ですよ。鹿島桜でしたか。あんなうまい酒は飲んだことがないとうちの署の連中大喜びでしたよ。
実は南井の地元に なかなかの酒蔵がありましてね。私は時々買い付けているんですが、いやー、なかなかのものです。部下たちも勝手に封を開けて飲んでしまうくらいで、最近では見つからないように隠しているくらいですよ。
お気持ちはよくわかりますよ。
This is a secret to everyone, but I actually swiped one of those bottles. No, 2 bottles, but I gave one of them to my mentor as a show of gratitude. He was a heavy drinker himself, so he was thrilled with it.
にしても残念ですね。ぜひとも今夜はその鹿島桜の酒蔵を南井さんに教えてもらいたかったのに、休養が入っちまうとはついてないですよ。
いやいや、申し訳ありません。あいつも今日の会を楽しみにしていたのですが、ちょいと本店に呼び出されまして、上司も松葉杖をついて一緒に上京しています。
上司？ああ、気の強いエリートさんですね。
I suddenly recalled the face of the talented young man who stood beside Detective Minai. His name was... That's right, I'm sure it was Maeno. His rank was Chief Inspector, but since he was in the career group and passed the National Civic Service exam, he was far younger than his subordinate, Minai-san. He was a bit hard to get along with, but he had guts and a wild spirit. He was quite a remarkable young man.
いやー、勇敢さはなかなか大したものだ。ああいう高学歴の方は鉄砲の音を聞いただけでブルっちまうもんだと思ってたんですけどね。自ら危険なチームの指揮を買って出るなんて、ベテラン刑事でもなかなかできることではありませんよ。
いやいや、勇敢と無鉄砲は違いますよ。突入の際は周辺の紹介を念入りに行うようにと命じていたのに、低たらくですから、一時は肝を冷やしました。
そういや、突入時に怪我をされたそうですね。でも杖付きでも歩けるってことは大事がなさそうで、何よりじゃないですか。
ええ、見ないのおかげでね。
Listening to that reply and seeing a bitter smile on his face, I was able to grasp the situation. Minai-san was considerate. It didn't seem like the kind of person who would shoot at a dangerous criminal out of an emotional outburst, but... I see. So that's how it was?
ミナイは前野が公安に配属された当初、彼の指導教官を務めていましてね。その縁あって階級が逆転した後も師弟というか、年の離れた兄弟みたいな関係なんですよ。
そういや、そんな感じでしたね。
Even the handful of times I saw the two of them together, Chief Inspector Maino always addressed Minai-san in an honorific tone, and never tried to act like a superior. And even when he had to be warned about the things he said and did, he accepted it completely frankly. When we saw that, we said it was funny how someone as proud as him had such a cute side to him.
つまり本店に呼び出された理由がそれですか。山沖さん、南井さんの処分どうなるんですか。
それを今査問にかけているところです。まあ全然お咎めなしというわけにはいかないでしょうがね。
He fired live rounds at a criminal, even though a no-fire order was in effect. And to make it worse, the person he shot died. Even though the criminals were armed and had already killed 3 people by that point in time. The fact that a policeman shot and killed a criminal while under strict no-fire orders was an extremely bad move. There was an incident just last year where a police officer shot and killed a ship hijacker, and the officer was charged with murder. This may be putting the cart before the horse, but the modern trend was to overlook those sorts of incidents.
しかしおかしな話だ。南井さんが撃っていなかったら足を撃たれていた捜査員、前の警部はおそらく目前に迫った犯人によって殺されていたでしょう。それは周囲の証言も、そしてテレビカメラの映像も十分に正当防衛であると証明してくれているじゃないですか。
それでも現場にいない人々にとっては建前の方が大事なんですよ。
Even if an officer is shot and killed, they just say it's an unavoidable part of this line of work. But on the other hand, shooting an armed criminal to ensure safety would cause a huge outcry, demanding punishment for the illegal deed. Were they police VIPs or politicians? I don't know who said it first, but neglect of the people in the field had its limits.
くそったり。
Amen to that. Some of the strong proponents of democracy consider police officers and soldiers like guard dogs or hunting dogs, and forget that they're actually human lives, while spouting off their ideals. No, they're delusions. But those people are human too. Of course, they consider their parents, siblings, their wife and children more important than their job. What on earth guarantees them their rights, their pride?
じゃあ、やはり南井さんは免職ですか？
いえいえ、そこまではさせませんよ。とりあえずみそぎ程度に今の部署は移動させますが、新設の私の直下の部署に置く予定です。ちょうど彼には担当してもらいたい事件がありましたからね。
それで大丈夫なんですか？確か以前ヒージャック犯を射殺した刑事さんは刑事告発されて罷免。上の方々も何人かがお辞めになられたと聞きましたが。
何？私たちとて指をくわえて黙っているわけではありませんよ。そもそも彼らに危険を負わせて命令を下す権限は彼らの公庫の憂いを取り除く義務を果たしてこそ担う資格を得るものと私は思っています。なればこそその行動に正当性を保証するのが私の役目。全力でもって南井のことを守るつもりです。
すごいなあ。
There was no sarcasm there. I seriously admired him. After all, unlike the so-called elites, the real elites have great resolve and strong compassion. Even in the siege operation, when it was overwhelming to see all his subordinates acting beyond their duties, to the point I felt totally outclassed. It was only natural when they had a boss like that.
そういや、南井さんが撃ち殺したっていうあの下道野郎。名前なんて言いましたっけ？
確か滝口和則。
Takiguchi. Where have I heard that name before?
東都大学の学生ですよ。T 大学籠城事件の時にもあの顔を見たことがあります。
Where have I heard that name before? I'm trying to remember. I feel like I've heard that name somewhere before. But I don't want to look it up lest I accidentally spoil myself to something. So I'm trying to joggle my memory a bit here. Nothing. Whatever. Let's just continue. When I heard the girls around me shrieking, I suddenly came back to my senses. Blood dripped down on the notebook on the desk, staining it in a dark red. I saw a girl crouched down by my feet, clinging to her arm. I could hear her moaning in pain, but her face was hidden behind her bangs, so I couldn't make out her expression. Bright red blood was spilling out from beneath the spot on her arm she was holding, gently dyeing the sleeves of her white uniform. Two of her friends rushed over in a hurry, with pale looks on their faces, and called out to her, asking if she was okay. Maybe she was afraid of the sight of blood, or confused after seeing it for the first time, because she kept her head face down and didn't answer them. A young boy dashed out of the classroom as soon as he heard that. Watching his back as he went, I suddenly noticed the scissors that had fallen by my feet and picked them up. And then I handed them over to the boy who stood frozen in shock right beside me. Those were his scissors. So I just wanted to return them. The boy turned to me with a frightened expression and quickly backed up. I think I see what's going on here. The other Natsumi has come out to play, right? Or wait, no, that's actually a result of the medication she was taking. That's right. Now that I think about it, wasn't there an incident that Natsumi was involved in when she was younger in school that was of a violent nature? He must have been too panicked to realize there was a desk and chair behind him. So he stumbled on it and fell to the ground in an extremely over-the-top manner. It was so goofy and out of place, I couldn't help but laugh. But only then did I notice that the hand holding the scissors was bloody. I absentmindedly gazed at my hands until finally my head began to clear up. And then, my whole body suddenly began to tremble. I did this. The one who brought this girl by my feet all this pain, enough to make her bleed, was me. Then, the one who brought this shocking, frightening atmosphere to the entire classroom was me? As if to back that up, the whole class was glaring at me with hatred and blame in their gaze. You did this. You're a terrible person for hurting a classmate. Even if those words didn't reach my ears, they jumped straight into my head. It wasn't me. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was just trying to defend myself. I put a little strength into pushing it away with my hand. Okay. I think I might see what's going on here. Was she was probably getting bullied by that girl that's on the ground now, bleeding. She had some scissors in her hand. She was probably using that to using those to bully Natsumi. And Natsumi, in an effort to get the scissors away from her, ended up trying to knock them away. But yeah, just did it a little too roughly, and then, well, now we got this happening. Is that what's going on here? It was the boy teasing me, trying to cut my hair. Correction, it was the boy. If he wasn't waving the scissors at me, none of this would have happened. And the classmates around me gawked at in amusement without making any effort to stop it. Even if one of them had said stop it, none of this would have happened. And yet, why? Why am I the bad guy? Because you stood up for yourself a bit too harshly, a bit too hard, I'm afraid. You're not wrong for sticking up for yourself. Clearly you're in a classroom full of midwits, but yeah, I mean, this is not gonna look good. The optics of this is not gonna win you any favors, even if you were originally the victim here. Unfortunately. I alone did something bad? Just then, a girl with a first aid kit came rushing in, along with the health teacher. And then she ran up to the injured girl. And when she ran up to the injured girl, she checked the wound on her arm and frowned.
ひどい。これは縫わなくちゃ。
Oof.
担任に連絡して救急車を呼んで。そこの男子、止血を手伝って。
Suddenly, the teacher noticed me standing nearby. And when she saw a blade of scissors in my hand, she turned to me with condemnation in her eyes. You're the one who hurt this girl? So cruel. So violent. The cold gaze in her eyes transmitted that message to my ears. That's not true. It wasn't me. It wasn't me! I'm not the one who did something wrong. Someone, listen. Listen to me! Yeah, if I remember right, in one of the previous arcs, Ushi did tell Akasaka about some issues that Natsumi had during middle school, and I think one of them involved a violent incident that required her to be transferred, if I remember correctly. If that's the case, then that must have been that incident in question. It's probably also the same one that got her put on that medication to begin with. Beginning clinical trials.
どうですか？その後の具合は。
あ、はい。おかげさまで最近気分がいいんです。夜もよく眠れるようになりましたし、外を歩いていても頭痛がしたり、急に気分が悪くなったりすることはなくなりました。
I took a breath after answering the doctor sitting in front of me, and savored the joy of it. When an adult calls out to you, you look them in the eyes as you answer them. That's a perfectly normal gesture for ordinary people, but up until just a little while ago, I couldn't do it at all. Right now, I'm unable to do it without any problems. Right now I'm able to do it without any problems. Even when the doctor is looking straight at me, my racing heart doesn't make me lose my breath, and dizziness doesn't darken my vision. Even I have noticed the good results. My heart has gotten significantly stronger since I started taking this prescription a few months ago.
ありがとうございました。今までどんな治療を受けても全然いい感じにならなかったのに、あの薬のおかげで近頃はなんとなく景色が広くなったっていうか、明るく見えるんです。あ、変なこと言ってすみません。つまり
いいんですよ。素直に感じたまま話してくれる方がこちらも状態を理解しやすくなりますから。視界が広く明るくなったのはいい傾向です。それだけ頭と心に余裕が出てきた証拠ですからね。
I myself was surprised by sudden laughter coming out of my mouth. It's been such a long time since I've let out such a natural, spontaneous laugh. Tears came spilling from my eyes after that laughter. For such a long time, I felt like I had to live with this depression, and it drove me to deep darkness and despair. No matter what I saw, said, or did, an unfathomable fatigue enveloped my whole body. At times, I almost even lost the will to go on living. But that painful, heavy baggage was finally fading from within me. I couldn't see anything when I was in that deep darkness. But now I could finally see a small but sure light right in front of me.
Watashi.
ほらほら、泣いてはいけませんよ。あなたはこの2ヶ月、本当によく頑張りました。心が元気を取り戻せば、きっと元通りの生活に戻れます。だから、笑顔になって、ね。あと少し、慌てず焦らず、ゆっくり一緒に頑張りましょう。
はい。はい。
After saying that, the doctor gently rubbed my back while I trembled from the sobbing. It was warm and soft, a very gentle touch. I'm glad. Really, I'm so glad. I was anxious about it at first, but I decided to take the medicine she recommended for me.
Hi. 例の中学生の患者さんですが、非常に素晴らしい回復ぶりです。血液検査の数値も通常値にかなり近づき、脈拍や発汗量も安定してきました。最初の頃は少し突っ込んだ問診をしただけで発作状態に陥っていたのですが、近頃は自分の思考内容をかなり正確に把握して、会話も整合性がはっきりと見られます。若干感情の起伏の制御に苦しんでいるようですが、心理テストも極端な結果を出すことがなくなりましたし、近日中に日常生活へ復帰させてもほぼ問題はないかと。いえいえ、私のカウンセリングは通常通りで特別なものは用いておりません。やはり先生にご紹介していただいた試薬が治療につながったのだと思います。それにしても今回の試薬を用いて臨床試験を行った患者は4人目になりますが、彼女を合わせて3人が社会復帰ともなれば十分な効能性です。
A literal handful of patients is all you think it takes to show that this reagent is actually effective. I think don't think you understand how proper clinical trials are supposed to be done, milady.
私の知り合いの医師も
far
効き
too
目の
small
良さに
sample
驚いており
size.
ましたし、この調子で今回の臨床データが集まれば、慎重になっている薬事審議会の委員さんもきっと納得してくれますよ。その残る一人の反応ですか？そうですね。効き目がないというわけではないのですが、少々気になる症状が見られましたので、服用時の心身状態を確認した上で再度投与を行う予定です。
Well, there you go. You got at least one outlier out of your super freaking small sample pool here that you should pay close attention to before you stop to think whether or not this thing should be put on the wider market.
おそらく別の薬との併用で起こった事例だとは思うのですが、場合によってはその臨床結果をアラートとして製薬会社に提出させていただきます。あ、もちろんその資料は正規の臨床データからは除外しておきますので。
And why?
いえ、その報告はこの電話ではまだ申し上げられません。あまりに突発的で、この薬の副作用かどうかも現状では判別しかねますので、もう少しお時間をいただけますか？
Yeah, this lady's fishy.
万一の場合は真っ先に先生にお知らせいたします。それでは。薬の成分的には絶対に起こり得ないはずなんだけど、服用後に幻覚を見るなんてのは。
Hallucinations, you say? I feel like that's an important clue. Oh, wait. This probably has something to do with the stuff we've seen with Natsume when she was losing her sanity. Her medication probably undoubtedly played a part in her seeing some of the hallucinations that we saw her experience. First day at the Public Relations Office. Hey, Domue. A dark corridor stretched out in front of me as I stepped off the elevator. Looking at that, I was more than just worried. I was so afraid I couldn't help but flinch.
本当にここで会っているのよね。
As I quietly muttered that to myself, this hallway with no signs of human activity felt cold, and a creepy feeling welled up inside me. The fluorescent lights were blinking and flashing like they were about to go out. The linoleum floor let out a high-pitched echo with every step I took. I could hear the hum of the air conditioner or some other mechanical noise. It was harsh and irritating. Even back in my college days, when I headed to the university research building in the dead of night to pick up something from the lost and found, it wasn't quite as terrifying a sight. This went far beyond just cutting costs. It was enough to put you on a true test of courage. Do the facility's personnel hold some animosity toward the departments stationed on this floor? Or is it because upper management deems them unimportant? The stagnant atmosphere was so heavy that I exhaled multiple deep breaths while holding my rapidly beating chest. I wanted to turn around immediately and head back to the ground floor, if possible. But if my new workplace was through here, my only option was to keep moving forward. But, in the end, maybe I should have asked someone to escort me there.
それにしても
In addition to the worry that weakened my knees, something felt off. When I heard Public Relations Office, I imagined a facility of a big mascot outside the entrance, with posters on display and pamphlets all available for visitors. In fact, when I came down on a previous trip for an interview, it was on the second floor of the National Police Agency building, in a clean, bright office that was open to the public. There was a showroom with exhibits on display, and a group of elementary school students were being led on a tour by a smiling female police officer. So, partly resigning myself to believing I'd also be working with kids like that more often, and partly trying to change my mindset to fit in with that, I called out to one of the staff members. But...
ああ、今度前の室長のところに配属になった方ですね。
There's that Maeno fellow again.
あなたの事務室は地下1階になります。東奥のエレベーターから降りて突き当たりの部屋ですよ。
地下？どういうことなんだろう。
I had no particular objections to working in a damp, dim, musty place, even if it was depressing. But somehow that seemed odd. Since this is the Public Relations Office, our main responsibility is to respond to various media reports and provide information to the general public. This was the police organization with the most reason to come into contact with the public. So why was the workplace such a pigsty?
しかも異常なほどの厳重なセキュリティだ。
I gently turned my gaze up toward the ceiling. There was a surveillance camera pointed right this way. Plus, I suddenly noticed a door in the middle of the hallway leading to an emergency staircase and tried turning the knob. It was locked from the other side, which meant that this corner of the first floor basement could only be reached through the elevator I just rode.
まるで悪の組織の秘密基地ね。
I tried to describe it with an outlandish metaphor, but it actually felt exactly right, so I quickly chased the thought away. Before long, I found a plate on the door near the end of the hallway that read, Public Relations Office, so I caught my breath. Then, after confirming that a light was on inside, I knocked and then opened the door. Well, here's a familiar sight. The moment I stepped inside, an odor like walking into a library tickled my nose. There were tall bookshelves, lined up in rows, as far as the eye could see. And they were packed with files and books.
ここが広報室。
I gasped at the volume of books that made it easy to mistake this place for a reference room. The spine of each file contained a date and a prefecture name, along with their own number. And then, after squeezing through the narrow gap between the bookcases and reaching the back, I found myself in a slightly open area. There were several office desks and a reception area, and a long sofa with someone sleeping on it with a blanket over his head, snoring. Wake up! Just as I approached to call out to him, I suddenly held my nose at the intense stench. The smell of cigarettes, coffee, and alcohol was emanating from his entire body. Oh, he's one of those, huh? There was also a mix of body odor hidden within the cologne in there. And it was foul. He doesn't even bathe, the slob. I held my breath to avoid inhaling the odor that was making me teary-eyed, and looked around for any signs of ventilation. Then I found an air conditioner near the wall and turned up to the max, and finally took a breath.
死ぬかと思った。
So you're the so-called Maino, huh, Stinky? Perhaps due to the loud mechanical noise, the man sleeping on his sofa had woken up and began fixing his messy hair. Hey, wait. Those small white specks scattered all around. Is that dandruff? You know, they have shampoo for that sort of thing, you know. You should probably use it.
誰だこんな朝早くに。
朝早くってもう1時過ぎですよ。
I knew I was just a stranger, but I couldn't help but chime in. There's no way you could describe it as early morning when it's past noon. Then, after hearing that, he checked his wristwatch and let out a big yawn, while fixing his hair once more.
やめて！もうそれ以上老け立てないで！
Do you hear it?
Tomoe.
Flaky!
My spine was shaking with a completely different fear from before, but still, I remembered the common sense of male-dominated society and somehow held back my desire to flee. What does that have to do with trying to avoid getting dandruff on you, man? Just flee! It's dandruff! And then I cleared my throat, adjusted myself, and turned toward him with some distance between us.
本日付で広報部に配属となりました南井智恵です。愛知県警柿内署出向よりこちらに移動いたしました。
My last gig blew up in my face in epic proportions, and I need some new work to distract me from my sorrow.
よろしくお願いします。
ああ、そういや今日来るって話だったな。で、名前は
The name's Minai, Stinky.
南井智恵です。
I held back the urge to tell him that I just said it, and repeated my name again. As soon as he heard that, he looked back at me with his eyes open wide. Then he yawned again, stretched in a completely rude manner, and stood up while cracking his neck.
あれ？
He looked familiar. It felt like he was someone I'd met face to face in the past few months. So, he must be.
前の室長ですよね。
なんだ？もう忘れたのか？俺の顔。
Well, it would help if I could actually see your damn face.
いえ。
I muttered to myself that it would have been better if I had forgotten, while squinting my eyes. I'm certain that the Mino-sen I met in my previous interview was a far more dignified looking human being. Maybe he just cleans up nicely. He gave the impression of a capable man dressed in his nice suit, worthy of the title elite. But now, this is a little more stinky, flaky, like an unshaven old man dressed in a dirty tracksuit. Yeah, that also works.
とにかく着任のご承認をいただけますでしょうか。
ああ、やった。
After saying that, Mino-sen gently walked toward me and casually grabbed the transfer letter I was holding out. And then he pulled a stamp from a drawer that was probably at his desk and stamped it in the approval column without even checking the contents and left the document there.
それで私の机はどれでしょうか。
Anyone I like?
ああ、そこにある机どれでも使え。
Hell yeah.
全部空き机だから。
Then I claim all the desks.
全部空きってじゃあ広報室って私と前野さん2人だけなんですか？
So it would seem.
いやいや、他の連中はみんな2階の広報ルームだ。この部屋で働くのが俺とお前というわけだ。室長直属だ。嬉しいだろう。
Yeah, you're right. We are acting directly under the director.
最高です。
Not evenly with him, but under. Not at all. On paper, it sounds nice to be working directly with your boss. But basically, that means I'm being treated as his personal secretary? Oh, wait a minute, that's right, you're my boss. Never mind, I thought someone else was my boss for a second. That was up on the second floor. So my stupid pun doesn't even work. Fuck. This treatment was completely unexpected and making me dizzy. There was nothing to enjoy about this. Not at all.
さて、俺はちょいと出てくる。
Your dandruff?
見ないだったな。お前、明日朝までにあの資料を清書しておいてくれ。
I'll make a clean copy of that material as soon as you make a clean you make a clean scalp of your scalp. A towering pile of documents sat on the desk in a direction Mino-san pointed. It was a tremendous volume. Did he expect me to go through that in a single day's work? So it would seem. Better get started.
なんだ？お前筆記に自信ないのか？
あります。明日の朝までですね。わかりました。
うん、頼んだぞ。
I can see that.
そんじゃな。
You lazy slob.
どちらへ？
ああ、ちょいと酔いざましに。
だからどちらへ？
新宿。ちょいと馬券買ってくるわ。
So you were my father's brother in arms, huh? You really are quite the wash-up these days, aren't you? Or at least that's what I would say, but clearly you don't wash yourself much at all. Mr. Stinky Dandruff. I was too stunned to say anything as Mino-san left the room, still dressed in his tracksuit. And then, I was the only one left behind in this messy room. Don't give me this bullshit! I was ready to scream out full of rage. But I swallowed those words. Why not? You're the only person in here who's gonna hear you. Somehow, rather than thinking this was an elaborate joke, my intuition told me this must be a test Mino-san set out for me. You keep telling yourself that. We'll see if you're actually right as time goes on.
Yoshi.
But I don't think you are. I claimed one of the desks and took a seat, then began looking through the pile of papers. So be it. Just watch me. I'll definitely prove to him that I'm not some weakling who loses motivation at something like this. Like hell I'll lose.
あの目、ほんとそっくりだぜ。やっぱり親子だな。
I have a feeling you were obfuscating stupidity, Mr. Stinky Dandruff. Let's see what these are. New semester and...
こんな晴れやかな気分で空を見上げたのは何年ぶりかな。
657. That's how many years it was. I took a deep breath that filled my chest as I gazed up at the bright blue sky. The warm air had a sweet scent to it. It was really refreshing and very comfortable. Lovely springtime weather. It's like it was celebrating my new life. Or maybe that's exaggerating a little.
よし、大丈夫。
As I walked out the door and headed down the road toward the school, I put a hand on my chest to check my heartbeat. It wasn't beating out of control, and I didn't feel any chills or cold sweats. My heart was very calm. I always felt anxious and dizzy any time I stepped outside, but now I didn't feel any of that heaviness or suffocation. My shoulders, my feet, and my whole body felt as light as a feather.
あれ？ひょっとしてあの子。うん、そうだよ。でもまさか。
I passed by some other kids in uniforms along the way, and shortly afterwards I felt their skin-piercing gazes and the whispers of their voices. Just a little while ago, that sort of noise brought me unbearable pain. My heart started beating intensely whenever I felt them staring, and chills ran through my body with every step I took. I'd think about the rumors spreading about me, and a huge amount of sweat would come pouring down my face and flowing down my back. Then I'd start feeling dizzy, until I fainted. So I couldn't go walking around outside by myself. I didn't like talking to people or seeing their faces. But now I didn't feel that at all. Somehow, I felt like I was dreaming. It was like I was walking somewhere unreal, and I could just ignore the things I don't like, as if they weren't there at all. Unpleasant sights, sounds, and other senses. The obnoxious garbage was just a faint specter. My world was only made up of things that were beneficial for me.
そう、気にしない。考えすぎなければいいんだ。
The people around me weren't focusing their attention on me in particular. And even when they did look at me, I didn't care because they were just part of the background. Yeah, they're like stones on the side of the road. Like weeds growing quietly in the shade. If they don't say anything, it's like they're not there at all. Thinking about it like that, it's fine. And thanks to the power of the medicine the doctor gave me, I was able to turn my way of thinking around. That's right. It was the same with that incident that resulted in me holding myself up at home. If I just dealt with everything like I am now, it never would have played out that way. Even though they came at me with scissors, if I had ignored it, they would have lost interest and left me alone. And no, they wouldn't. Yes, as long as you don't get involved with others, nothing will ever happen. You don't have to worry about anything. I'm sure the other kids feel the same way. Even the kid who teased me with the scissors. Even the kid who got hurt. The classmates who were silently watching all around. The teacher. Everyone. They prefer to pretend nothing happened at all, for their own reasons. So, I decided I'd pretend it never happened either. That's okay. That should be fine. I'm sure of it. Nothing about this feels fine. Yeah, she really does feel like a ticking time bomb here. That's for sure. A fragment of Somotsushi. Sushi. This is a special fragment, born from the process of creating onikakushi, watanagashi, and tatari goroshi. A sad tragedy that befell Natsumi Kimiyoshi, a girl who bore the blood of the three families, trying to live a life outside of Hinamizawa. And the trigger for it all was a series of small misunderstandings. However, they piled up, causing the discontent and anxiety she had been keeping hidden until that moment to suddenly explode, and she was consumed by murderous bloodlust. Ever since she moved to this new town, she secretly harbored an inferiority complex toward the people around her. Just a small sense of not fitting in, a difference in values, or a feeling of inferiority can cause a person to feel alienated and become lonely. I wonder if you yourself have ever faced such an experience. Haven't we all? However, by the end of this tragedy, a tiny hope we had not anticipated was born. It was a little different from a fragment, smaller and more fleeting. At first, it couldn't even be called a lump. Nevertheless, as time went on, it gained a certain power. And that power What, that's it? Okay. I guess that's it. Have all these sad stories broken your heart? Then this fragment is something of a refreshing side dish served between main courses. A cutout of the happy everyday life for seeing Watanagashi before the tragedy unfolds. It was a lively escapade involving the club members, Tomitaki, Irie, and even Takano. Even Takano got in on the action, huh? However, it seems the one here is merely a copy of the original fragment, and so it takes on a slightly different shape and color. Perhaps you can find the real fragment somewhere out there. And if you do find it, would you kindly let me know? I'm very interested to know what it was like. Well, those two were utterly pointless. And it looks like these ones are also probably going to be pointless too. Why not? I'll just go through these ones and then... yeah, I'll just go through them. Fragment of Yoigoshi. With this fragment, you can grasp one piece of the truth. Okay, I think I remember now. Chapter 8 had something similar, where he had these really short little, these short little scenes play out after getting certain fragments, which was basically their way of telling you that you were able to connect to other fragments you weren't able to connect before. That must be what these are. With this fragment, you can grasp one piece of the truth. But on the other hand, it means facing a new mystery that you never imagined, doesn't it? At last, Akasaka and his companions notice there's something more to this calamity. But the chain of tragedies could no longer be stopped. And the hope born from Somotsushi was viciously robbed of its light, erased without a trace. In the end, someone with enormous power obstructed their investigation and forced them to withdraw, so it could never be called a happy ending. However, to be so thoroughly obstructed also means they drew near that enemy's weak point. Unfortunately, I can't say I know what that actually is. But you should have caught a glimpse of the fact that this tragedy was not the work of a curse. And despite the dark shadow of Hinamizawa, and the sad past hidden there that Natsumi had been suffering from, she was finally able to understand what she truly needed. Through so many sacrifices, and by the grace of their kindness, the world she thought was so cold began to warm up without her even noticing. So, she thought she was still haunted by regret and a guilty conscience. She decided to move forward. I'm sure that sight brought Akasaka and the others hope. That's what I chose to believe. And finally, a fragment of Yoigoshi. This fragment was made by combining the shattered debris of Sumihoboroshi with 4 young people of questionable character and an even more mysterious middle-aged woman. This is a tale of a Midsummer's Night Dream in 2006, where they spent the night in an old abandoned building in the corner of a ghost town. He was worried about the future. She was suffering from the past. He was running away. She had always been waiting. And a cheerful female reporter was there too. Somehow, her face looked familiar. That's right. That was his daughter. Come to think of it, it seems he passed his strong will on to her. In those beautiful eyes. In fact, she came to Hinamizawa for an important purpose. There, she discovered something that can unravel the truth. And the person she passed that knowledge on to is... You know what? I know this will cut things a little short. Possibly. Fuck it, I'll keep going a little bit more. Retaliation for failure. I couldn't remember how I got here. When I came back to my senses, I noticed the asphalt had turned to soil, and I was surrounded on all sides by the greenery of trees. Takano.
ここ公園
I raised my drunken head to take a look around. People were scarce, and not a single one of them was looking at me.
別にどうでもいいわ。
I found a decent-looking patch of grass and took a seat, and then laid down and looked up at the sky. A blue sky with white clouds. It was a calm, refreshing view. But for me right now, it was a painful, ironic, vexuous presence.
くそ腐ってる
Without even thinking, I swore out loud while tearing at the weeds around me. Everything was perfect. There was no need to worry about anything. The plan should have been a guaranteed success. For the longest time, upper management supported sacrificing the target and performing the ritual according to the manual. You're talking about that, aren't you? Preparations were made, personnel were assigned, and surrounding movements were being monitored specifically for that purpose. And then, on the night of Watanagashi, the ceremony to mark the beginning went as planned, and the finale was to commence as soon as the target was secured. And yet, despite all that, a single anomaly caused everything to fall apart. No, it was far worse than that. Everything that had been supporting me was ruined.
嘘っぱちだと。おじいちゃんの研究がすべてただのザレ事だと。
Every time I thought about it, I felt a burning impulse in my mind and in my heart. I should have struck harder. If all I was going to do was leave in low spirits and weep without saying a word, I should have attacked with all my emotional force behind me. That regret enraged me, and the tears wouldn't stop, even now. A few days after the night of Watanagashi, the missing body of Rika Furuti was discovered in an old well in the basement of the Sonozaki estate. And what's more, a considerable amount of time had passed since her murder. Clearly more than 48 hours. Ah, so this is the thing that made it all fall apart here, huh? There was no need to wait for precise autopsy results. She was almost certainly killed a day after Watanagashi and thrown to the bottom of the well. As a result, the village was thrown into chaos completely different from the violence we expected. Small-town schoolgirl's midsummer murder. The curse of Urashiro-sama strikes again. The mass media wrote amusing stories about these incidents, and Hinamizawa was exposed to the eyes of the public day after day. And what's more, with the death of all the leaders of the three families causing the village to rapidly lose its unified strength, the plan to abandon the village that had been put on hold years ago was re-entering center stage. Wait a minute. Does this take place after the events of chapters 2 and 5 in the main story? Even so, we were desperately trying to turn things around, but we were very limited in what we could do thanks to the police presence and the tremendous interest from the public. It was hopeless. And...
女王感染者が死ぬと48時間以内に村人全員が異常行動を引き起こす。故にその被害の余波が周辺地域に広がる前に部隊を派遣して 速やかに予防措置を取るべき。緊急マニュアルにはそう記載されていたかと思うのですが。
ええ、そうです。確かにおじいちゃん、高野先生はそう仮定を立てておられました。その根拠は外国の同様の事例に従ったもので、非常に説得力があると皆さんもおっしゃってくださったではありませんか。
でも現実にはご覧の通りです。もし本当に女王感染者の死が彼らに影響を及ぼしているのだとしたら、行方不明か否かにかかわらず、その死から48時間が経過した時点で異常が発生しているはず。しかし女王感染者が死んだ後も村人は誰一人異常をきたしておりませんでしたし、
確かにあまりの惨劇に直面して皆動揺してはいますが、それはあくまで常識の範囲内。危ないところでした。こんな妄言に踊らされて村人に処置を施していたら、我々はとんでもない大量殺戮によってこの手を血に染めてしまっているところでしたよ。
That you would have. He clicked his tongue after saying that, while slamming the file in his hands down to the floor. The other people lined up beside him had the same look on their faces. Contempt, pity, and hatred and rage for the one who deceived them.
待ってください。異常行動の発生は起こる。今後必ず起きます。ただその発生にタイムラグが生じているだけなんです。高野先生の研究調書に間違いはないんです。お願いです。信じてください。
とりあえず入江機関にはこの件について報告書の提出を求めます。それからプロジェクトに対しての見直しを。研究の主軸である対象が死亡してしまったのですから当然の処置だと思いますが。
そんな
Yes. It's all over. The research that my grandfather and I dedicated our lives to. Everything we clenched our teeth and endured for decades had been denied. As of now, my passion and my soul had disappeared, leaving me an empty shell. There was no longer anyone left to mourn for it. I had thrown it all away by my own hands. That moment, I suddenly remembered the faint voice I heard and looked in the direction it came from. There was a boy and a girl standing in the grass before the trees. Those children. That was the older sister of Shion Sonozaki, who caused this entire incident. Neon. And that was her friend, Keiichi Maebara.
くぅ、なかなか盛大に遊び回ったな。
It's been so long since we've seen you, Mr. Magician of Words. How I've missed you.
面白かった。
And I never get tired of hearing your crow-like laugh, Mion.
あんなにゲームで遊んだの本当に久しぶりだよ。
The two of them were happily speaking loudly, with bright smiles on our faces. It was an awkward exchange between kids of that age who weren't ready yet to call themselves a couple. But the scene was full of happiness. Even in Hinamizawa, I had seen a scene like that so many times before. Every time, I smiled just a little. And...
お前、全部初めてって言ってたけど、それ本当か？初プレイで2台もハイスコアに名前入れるなんて、とんでもない実力だぜ。
ち
4代の間違いだよケイちゃん。こういうのはセンスと勘、そして動体視力がものを言うのさ。普段の鍛錬を怠らなかった成果だよ。むしろケイちゃんはアドバンテージをひっくり返されたことを恥と思うべきだね。
おいおい、ちょっと待てよ。エアホッケーの時とか、あれ何なんて後ろを指さして顔を向けた瞬間打ち込んできたのは反則だろ。
No, that's a move of desperation if I've ever seen one, Mion.
まったく容赦のないやつだぜ。
勝てば官軍、負ければ賊軍だよ。
How irritating. Frustration and hatred welled up inside me for no reason. How dare you sons of bitches not die within 48 hours, or lose your damn minds! Why? Why are these kids able to laugh like that after this tragedy? Even though they'd endured terrible misfortune, they can still enjoy the day like they're in the height of prosperity. Even though they expended no effort and no deep thoughts, putting up no resistance to the flow and just being tossed about by it. Even though they were frightened by the curse and wildly dancing to it. Yeah, that's right. Come to think of it, that's true. The reason Shion Sonozaki went berserk in the first place was because of the unusual policy of the Sonozaki family. They always acted the part of the mastermind even though they never did anything. Even though they had no power, they continued to dominate the people around them with threats that were no more than empty bluffs. And so, Shion Sonozaki was terrified of breaking their commandments. So rather than being killed by the person acting as the mastermind, she killed, and killed some more. And the result was how things turned out now. It's all because of them. If they hadn't driven that girl so far, at the very least, if they had been kept in check, everything would have been settled peacefully. And yet, despite that, they don't even know their sin. They don't feel it themselves. Keiichi, Mion, you might want to do a quick 180 and start running in the exact opposite direction. I have a feeling you might be in danger here. My throat was itchy. Oh. Maybe you're not in danger. The pain wouldn't go away, no matter how much I scratched at it. Quite the opposite. I felt an impulse gushing out from within. My vision flickered. This pain is... Yes, that's right. That's one of the symptoms. In the end, it happened. It happened, didn't it? Now watch, you foolish and shallow people. In the end, my grandfather's research was right. He was right!
あ、今何時ぐらい
？5時くらいかな。
ああ、じゃあ夕食まであと少しだね。どこかで食べて帰る？
そうだな。ファーストフードでハンバーガーなんてどうだ？
おお、いいね。あ、その前にちょっと失礼。
Now, I'll prove it! Run! I myself, right here, with my own two hands!
こんにちは。
ああ、こんにちは。
ちゃん寝ちゃったの？もう、しょうがないな。女の子とのデート中に居眠りなんて、エチケット違反だよ。ケイちゃん？もう、いつまで寝てるんだよ。ほら、起きて。ケイちゃん？はっ！
Excuse me, ma'am.
なーに？何か用かしら？
No, no. Just searching for you. You haven't been to the clinic for a while now, have you? And you haven't gone home.
別にどうでもいいでしょ。ちゃんと報告書は約束の期日までに提出するわよ。それで問題ないんでしょ。
No, there's a big problem.
え？
We received orders from up top to take the best strategy. Well, the harbor isn't far from here. Don't you think that would be a good place to never be found?
何の話よ。ちょっとどこへ。
Sayonara Takano. See how it is now. Hinamizawa syndrome never existed to begin with. We can't have you unearthing it when we're putting it all behind us. Yeah, if I remember right, it was either chapter 2 or chapter 5 where we got that sudden ending where Keiichi was mysteriously killed, and we never truly found out how that happened, now did we? I guess now we know. It was Takano's handiwork rather than some random assassin. I mean, I guess yeah, sure, okay. I honestly don't know what to think about that revelation, if I'm being honest. I think this is one of those things I might have to just sit back on and digest a little. I think this is a good enough spot to stop. So, next time we come back, we're going to continue going through the fragments, starting with the Shirakawa Mountain Villa Siege incident, which I think is the one we were just hearing about on the Kawaru Yamoki fragment. And I guess we'll get the exact details behind that particular incident start in the beginning of the next episode, and then we'll just continue going on from there. So, there's definitely a couple interesting little tidbits that have been revealed here and there, but nothing terribly surprising. A lot of it was just retreading. It was just basically retreading ground we've already more or less covered in the background in some of the other console arcs. But this last fragment, I will admit, was definitely interesting to see. If for no other reason than it gave some additional context to the endings of chapters 2 and 5 of the main story, or at least chapter 2, if I remember right. No, it was chapter 5, I think. So, that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of the Higurashi When They Cry Console Arcs. And if you did, and you want to see more content from me, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Take care.